Glenn, when you were a single guy, probably playing for the Riders, you'd go into your fridge, I'm sure, a lot of times and go, what am I going to cook here? What was Glen Suitor's go-to when he was a bachelor?
I can't remember the name of the product, but it came in a big cup, and it was simply add boiling water, and you had a cup of noodles. It might have even been Cup of Noodles was the name of the product. That was a go-to for sure, because they were easy to store. You could leave them in there for a month; it didn't matter. And the other was a box of Kraft Dinner that I had it down to a system where I could boil the noodles or the macaroni or whatever it is. I could boil that in a pot, have the cheese mix and some extra cheese that I'd put in it ready to go in basically the same setup, and then I'd stir it with the edge of the box. So I basically only had to wash one pot and one fork after this macaroni and cheese disaster. So I totally relate to what you guys are talking about. Open the fridge, whatever's in there, I'll think of something.
That's dinner. Yep.
I saw my wife walk in here about half hour ago.
Yep.
An absolute flyby, waves, nice of her. I am worried on this, the size of these trade shows. When next time I see her,
is she shopping?
Auto shopping. What she's going to have in her hands, in bags, in something.
Well, she's not buying one of those saddles we see down the way.
How much is a saddle? I was asking that question. What's a saddle run?
Depends how much you want to spend.
Give me a ballpark.
You could spend 10 to 20 grand in a heartbeat.
Oh, I don't know, that kind of.
Yeah. But
I don't have a horse,
that's probably
too.
a $3,500 saddle.
Need the horse first.
Yeah, you should have.
Talk to our buddy from the RCMP there.
He'll round you up one. Yep.
There's maybe a market, a used market. Okay, Glenn. I don't know where you want to start. I want to go with Mark Killam to Edmonton as the hot topic today. There's out on social media, some of the experts are saying he's the front runner there in Edmonton now. Is that a stretch maybe to call him the front runner? What are you thinking? If you're hearing anything, what do you think there?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's the front runner. I would say, the top probably three prospects that Ed Hervey's looking at. But there's going to be a process here for Ed Hervey, and he may be well along that line already and well into the journey. But Ed is going to have to sit down, probably already has, with Tre Ford. And if he walks out of that meeting feeling comfortable that this guy is potentially our starting quarterback and could be a franchise player. And it's interesting to me on just a little side note here before I finish that thought. This comparison that Davis Alexander has been anointed now, and I like the kid. I think he's great, and I think he's got a huge upside and a great future ahead of him. But for some reason, Davis, with a lot of the experts, Davis Alexander is a lock and has pushed Cody Fajardo out of Montreal, and we still have a question mark about Tre Ford. I don't understand it. I really don't. When you just look at the stats, the numbers, the athleticism, Tre Ford has started more games, has won more games, has shown us, whether you're a casual fan or an expert, has shown both ends of that spectrum how athletically gifted he is, to a point where it's not comparable. Like, you don't say, well, he kind of runs like Doug Flutie. No, he's better runner than Doug Flutie. He can make he can make the throws from the pocket, but he's not Ricky Ray. Well, he's made many throws like Ricky Ray from the pocket. I'm not comparing him to these guys yet, but I'm saying that it just is. It's a huge question mark for me why people will not say that Tre Ford is a potential superstar in the league based on what we've seen, but yet Davis Alexander is automatically one of the guys that everyone thinks is going to be that guy. And again, taking nothing away from Davis. So, I think having said all of that, and I got on my side rant, but to me, this is about Ed Hervey, his comfort level with Tre Ford being his guy, because that affects, in my mind, who the head coach is. So if Ed Hervey is thinking, you know what, I don't think we're going to go with Tre Ford. I didn't like what I heard in the meetings, and I'm not saying he did this. I'm saying this is one end of the spectrum. Mm-hmm. And we're going to go with a veteran. We're going to try and get Cody Fajardo into Edmonton. We're going to try and get Jake Mayer into Edmonton, and then we'll have McLeod Bethel Thompson and Jake Mayer, and we'll go with veteran guys. If that's the case, then he doesn't need to bring in Buck Pierce or a guy that really knows a quarterback well and that position well as a head coach. He could bring in a defensive expert as a head coach. It could change his priority list when it comes to the head coach. If he walks out of that meeting saying, Tre Ford's my guy. Now, he's got to make the team. He's got to do all of that. No, you're not given anything at the pro level. But if he walks out of that meeting saying, Tre Ford's my guy, well, then, you almost would think a Buck Pierce would move up that priority list, maybe even ahead of Mark Gillum.
I wonder how much first off, it's going to be funny because we know how this operation works. Somebody's going to take out what you're saying. It's going to be on social media by 8 tomorrow morning. It's going to be Glen Suitor said Tre Ford is better than Doug Flutie. Tre Ford is a better runner than Michael Vick. It's like a game of telephone on social media. It's like, no, we get what you're saying, Glenn. We totally get what you're saying. And then the other thing too that I think is like, does the owner have a play in this? Is the owner tied to everyone? But sorry, Sharky, you wanted to go.
Well, I did, and I'm not a Tre Ford fan for different reasons, and I don't have an opinion on Davis Alexander because I think the size is too small to review and say we're going to anoint this guy as a starting quarterback. He's had some good games and where he's got to play, and I give him credit for that. Tre Ford, there's a larger sample size on. My thing with Tre Ford is he's a runaround guy. So he makes great passes after 4 defensive tackles have got exhausted and can't chase him anymore. And the defensive backs are tired from chasing receivers. I think Tre Ford is a runaround quarterback, and he's not a quarterback that's going to just stand in the pocket and throw you the ball. He's going to run around and try to make things happen. What they're doing in Montreal, I don't see why they would come out with that statement. There was no need to. They could have said they're bringing back Alexander and Fajardo, and made them battle for the job, if you will. I think it's a risk on their part to put all their eggs in that basket, but I'm not quite the same fan of Ford that you are.
Well, it's interesting, Sharky, because let me start with the running and throwing the ball on the run, discussion, because I hear that quite often. In fact, I don't have the numbers in front of me because it was a game, late in the season when Tre Ford was starting, and we have an extra stats guy in the booth, and I often ask that person to, track something for me. Take a look at Tre Ford, for instance, and tell me how many of his completions and incompletions came from the pocket and how many came from when he was on the run. And he was, in that particular game, I think he started out something like 17 of 19. And 90% of those throws were from the pocket out of shotgun. And, I think, if you're not wrong that one of his great superpowers is when he is out on the run. And one of the reasons their run game opened up so well was when Tre Ford was added to the lineup and defensive linemen had to worry about Ford on the edges and his tailbacks, between the tackles. So, a lot of that is a trickle-down effect for an athletic quarterback. And in that regard, if you only had a guy, let's just say for a second that you're right, Sharky, and Tre Ford is only good outside of the pocket. He's only good when he runs, and that's not enough. Let's just say that for a second.
Okay.
Well, okay, Damon Allen was that. And Damon Allen was good enough
to argue with you then, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. That's what he was. Tracy Ham was that.
Doug then there's the cerebral part of everything.
Was a runner, but yeah.
I appreciate that more when you explain it that way. I really do. That means a lot more when you say it that way, that those guys, and although I saw them more as pure passers than runarounds, but I do remember Damon Allen and Tracy Ham creating a lot of havoc when they got outside the tackles.
Yeah, exactly. So, I just listen, we don't know if Tre Ford can take a team to a championship yet. We don't know if Nathan Rourke can do that yet. We certainly don't know if Davis Alexander can do it yet. I really like Davis Alexander, but he's been anointed. I mean, a 3-year contract, he's basically the starter in Montreal next year. So now it's, okay, you've given him that role, and most of the experts across the league have said, well, yeah, of course. I mean, did you see how he played? I loved how he played. But it's a little early to say he's, taking you to multiple Grey Cups. And Tre Ford's in the same boat, and yet one guy is being talked about like he's, we're not really sure. We're not really sure about him. Well, you're pretty sure about Davis Alexander. How are you not sure about Tre Ford? He's won more games on a team that wasn't a championship team. That's another aspect of this.
Yeah,
Montreal has a championship team.
Yeah.
And so I want to ask a different question on that same note. Fajardo was obviously the Grey Cup MVP and a big part of their team 2 years ago when they win the Grey Cup. Now they're literally throwing him away a year later. I mean, Regina was a bad team at the time. Had to pin it on somebody. He came out of here and went to Montreal and played like gangbusters. Why has Montreal given up so quickly on him?
I think sometimes, it comes from a lot of us in the media that create these narratives and just by always discussing a quarterback as if, no, we're not really sure. I think that probably trickles into management and into coaching staffs and things like that, which is really too bad. I mean, that's a guess, but it's really too bad if that happens. I mean, I hear you on Cody Fajardo. I don't understand how a guy can take a team to the West Final, be a goalpost away from a Grey Cup appearance as the starter in Saskatchewan, have a team that really struggled. And let's be honest, that team was undisciplined that next year when Cody didn't play well, and they were just all for their own, it was a selfish team at the time. Let's be honest about it.
Yep.
And they got rid of a lot of those guys, and they're building something really special. And that was the bad year for Cody. Then he goes and wins a championship in Montreal and has them, a drive away from winning that Toronto until it got away from him late. But they weren't out of that game in the East Final this year. So, and now he's just like, well, Cody, we can get rid of Cody, and we've got a good young guy behind him. I don't know. Sometimes I think you take for granted, A, how difficult the position is, and B, what happened to it's a result-oriented business. What happened to that? Because if it's result-oriented, then Cody Fajardo should be the starter in Montreal.
What do you think is going through Cody Fajardo's head right now?
What do I got to do?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know him as a competitor.
Exactly, Barney.
Yeah.
No, Barney, that's exactly what he's doing. Listen, he's trying to be professional, and when he gets in front of a mic, he will be professional. Just like I was listening to the media availability for Vernon Adams today, and how professional he was about, what do you think about what happened in Vancouver, with Nathan Rourke returning and all of that? And he goes, you know what, it's a business, and I understand it. Like, they're going to say that, Cody's going to say that, but that's exactly what Vernon Adams thought last year, and it's exactly what Cody Fajardo thinks right now. He's going, really? What do you need from me more than I gave you, than taking you to a championship season and then to the fourth quarter of the East Final the very next year? Yeah, we didn't finish. We didn't get it done that year. We didn't go back. I don't know. It's crazy to me sometimes.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So does he say, listen, we see it in every other sport. Let's look at an exit plan here. I don't want to be here. Or is he not that guy?
Yeah, I think it would be very difficult situation, and Cody would not be bad in the locker room. He will be fantastic in the locker room. If he and Davis Alexander are on the same roster next year, then he'll do everything in his power to support him. But I guarantee you, he's thinking, okay, you know what? Let's move on. I think about it's a different position, guys. But Justin McInnes told me this year. I asked him, why did you sign? Why did you leave Saskatchewan and sign in BC? And he said, because BC showed me that they really wanted me. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about even opportunity. I had to make the team, and I had to earn my opportunity on either side, on either team, whether it was the Riders or the Lions. But you know why? I got a call from the coach. I got a call from the president. I got a call from the starting quarterback. And they all said, Justin, we really want you as part of our team. And he goes, that was it for me. I felt like I was wanted there. It's not like you're a fragile human being and you can't, live with rejection. That's the life. But there is human nature involved here. And I guarantee you, when you get that call from the starting quarterback and the GM and everybody else saying, hey, we really want you, here's the money we can give you, I'd rather go to where I'm wanted. And that's what I'm sure Cody will be thinking about right now.
So 3 phone calls over one.
Wanted in Montreal.
Something as simple as an extra phone call or as simple as an extra communication might make the difference towards where a guy signs or not. There's a simple message there for every coach and GM in every sport around the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a great point, Sharky. And it doesn't matter the level. And be all in. If you want this guy, hey, you can always cut a player. You can always trade a player. That everyone understands that's the world. But when you're on the phone with them, be all in. Just like Corey Mace was all in when he interviewed for that head coaching job in Saskatchewan. He didn't go in there saying, well, I'd like to. Yes, I'll probably move here. There was no doubt. He said, I want this job, period. I'll do whatever's necessary to get this team right. And that be all in.
Yep. Okay. Has it never been more important to have not even a serviceable, a solid backup quarterback in this league? The way, and I don't know, it's just the way the athletes are now, the way the defenders are now, the turf, who knows what. Nobody's making it through a full season anymore the way we used to see the Damon Allens, the Anthony Calvillos, the Tracy Hams, Matt Dunnigan. Well, Dunnigan had quite a few injuries, but is it never been more important, Glenn, to have somebody in the backup role that can win you football games?
Yes, and it's not only just the backup in case of injury, but it's the development of the next guy. And so that's why when they decided that the league office decided that they were going to go to 2 quarterbacks on the roster, but make it an option for some teams, and most teams put 3 on them anyway. But I was totally against that. I thought that's crazy. This is the most difficult position to be good at in any sport, in all sports. The quarterback position has the highest degree of difficulty. And so we're going to just not worry about developing a guy. I mean, you have to have not only 1 and 2 that you can win with, but 3's got to be your next one. And hopefully one of 2 and 3 can be your short yardage quarterback, because I wouldn't put a starter in to short yardage ever. I would never do that. And I hate when they do that. And they say, well, he's our guy and he's our starter and he can take it. Why would you risk an extra hit on your franchise quarterback?
Yeah.
It just it's insane. So again, this is clearly off-season radio, because I'd use different language when it's when it's in the regular season and I'm interviewing coaches every week. But hey, you know what I mean, guys. Like, it is important, Barney, to have 2. But I say it's important to have 3. And in fact, I'd have one on the practice roster too, or at least on your neg list, telling him the playbook, giving him as much information as you can do comfortably without giving away secrets, obviously, but so that he is prepared when you have to make that phone call to bring him into camp.
All right. Geez, already half past the hour. Let's regroup. We'll chat on Tuesday. Who knows what we'll be chatting about come Tuesday. But yeah, it's cold here. Agribition is absolutely, but you should be here, Glenn. You know how good Agribition is, but it's cold out.
I love it. I love it, man. I love the rodeo. I used to go to the Stampede in Calgary with buddies. Oh yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's good times. All right, Glenn, have a great weekend. Talk to you on Tuesday.
Thanks, guys. You too.
Thanks, Glenn.